Now, there are a gazillion aircraft models out there, far too many to be in the possession of just one collector, let alone being reviewed by one person. Which is why I am so grateful for my friend Tim, you might also know him as HDI International Airport, who borrowed me this aircraft model so we together could take a closer look at it to find out what it has to offer for collectors. So be sure also to check him out. A link to his Instagram is in the video description below, and once again a thanks to Tim for making this review possible. So with that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we today will take a closer look at a Boeing 747-100 of Aer Lingus. At the front of the box we have a cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of the box we have the Aer Lingus branding. Now, the Inflight 500 box design is simple, but it does pretty much what it's supposed to do. It protects the aircraft model, has a basic design, and on the back side we get a rendition of the aircraft, as well as the most basic information like the airline, aircraft type, and registration code. So while there's of course always room to add more stuff, as I say, this box does the basics and it does them well. And here she is, the Boeing 747-100 in the 1970s standard livery of Aer Lingus. Now, this aircraft model was created by Inflight 500 back in 2006. According to the DEMA database, there were only made 744 units of this aircraft model, making it a fairly rare aircraft model. So apart from being a rare model, it also very much represents an aviation chapter where prestige was much higher on the agenda than economics, as frankly not even in today's world of aviation an aircraft of that size could be justified for an airline like Aer Lingus. But what can the aircraft model offer for collectors apart from a bit of nostalgia? Well, we'll find out by taking a closer look at it, starting off with the tail section where we have the iconic Aer Lingus branding on the vertical stabilizer. On the fuselage we then find the flag of the Irish Republic, the full registration code of the aircraft type specification, and towards the very tail of the aircraft we also have a bit of detailing around the APU exhaust. At the front of the aircraft and across the fuselage we then have the writing and branding of Aer Lingus. We do also find the name of the aircraft, which in this case is named after St. Patrick. We also have a few minor static ports or hatches across the fuselage. They are not that visible, but if you take a closer look at it you will notice them. More details can also be found around the cockpit section, where we of course have the cockpit windows, and around that we actually have quite a few nice detailing, including the window wipers that have been printed on, but also above the cockpit windows we do have the emergency hatch for the cockpit. But let's move on to the engine nacelles. They have been given this a little bit grainy but nice metallic look, where we also find the Irish shamrock once again. Apart from that, we unfortunately don't really have any printed details here, but the physical detailing of these engines is actually really rather lovely, especially considering the age of the aircraft model. And when we look into the engines from the front, we can see the engine fan blades. The wings do also have some details that are worth mentioning. So let's take a look at the top side, where we have the different flap slats and spoilers. Unfortunately, a little bit drowned away by the grey base paint of the wings, but we do have some different shades of grey for additional detailing. The underside of the wings, however, I think is much nicer, with lots of physical detailing, and we also find the full registration code of the aircraft. The 747-100 then also has this feature of these kind of pins at the end of the wings. As far as I know, those are actually antennas. But the best detail for me is a printed detail in form of the landing lights. Now let us also take a quick look at the landing gear, which is the standard landing gear for Inflight 500 747 scale 500 models, but also for many other 747s of that time period that were not made by Harper Wings. The landing gear is made entirely out of metal and overall looks quite nice. The only thing I don't like about it is actually that the inner pair of the main landing gear, those are always very loose. They kind of wobble around. They won't fall out, but it's just not very nice. The front landing gear, I think, is however solid as a rock, and we even get some printed details, which is very nice. On the belly of the aircraft we find more printed details related to the landing gear, looking quite nice. There is also a hole in the fuselage for a stand, which is not included with this aircraft model, at least as far as I know, but this is a second-hand model, so I'm actually not quite sure if there was a stand included when it originally was released. Some printed details we can also find on top of the fuselage. Now, we don't have physical antennas, but we have printed antennas here, which I think is a lovely addition to any aircraft model. It's such a small little thing and should just be a standard with all scale 500 models, in my opinion. And then finally, we do also have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here at the back of the aircraft, and also here at the front of the aircraft. So then we have it, the Boeing 747-100 in the 1970s, standard livery of Aer Lingus by Inflight 500 in scale 1 to 500. And what can we say about this aircraft model? I mean, honestly speaking, what a beauty. This model can easily put any current Wings release to shame, because it in no way lags behind, despite being almost 20 years old. As far as I see it, there are only two places where this aircraft model does show its age. One thing is, of course, the center pair of the main landing gear being this weird wobbly landing gear, which all 747s that were not made by Hapov in that time period had. And then the way the wings have been slotted in underneath the fuselage. Nowadays, the solution where they're basically a stock in from the side looks better, but these are really minor details, because overall the model does still look banging. The rest of the physical detailing is just very good. The mold is excellent. The print quality itself is also of a very high standard. I haven't really found any major smudges or stuff like that. The edges are clear as they should be. A lovely amount of detailing. In fact, there are printed details like, for example, the print around the front landing gear or the landing lights, which Hapag to this day do not have as a standard. So yeah, as a collector in scale 500, you can only be happy with this aircraft model, in my opinion. So with that, we have reached the end of today's episode. Once again, thanks to Tim for borrowing me this aircraft model so we could make a review of it. If you liked this video, then feel free to leave a like, and if you are new around here, why not hit subscribe. With that, thanks so much for watching. I'm checking out, and bye.